Dr. Sarah Voss pressed her palm against the bioscanner and watched the Caltharian hospital ship's medical bay doors slide open with their characteristic whisper hiss. 3 weeks into her exchange program aboard the Ascendant Mercy, she still felt like an intruder every time she entered their pristine domain. Dr. Voss, Thylan Keth's voice carried the precise articulation that marked all Caltharian speech, each syllable crisp as surgical steel. The chief medical officer stood beside the main diagnostic array, his pale blue skin almost luminescent under the medical bay's full-spectrum lighting. "Your presence is required in Quarantine Bay 7. Sarah grabbed her medical kit and followed him through the corridors lined with biomonitoring displays. What have we got? A Zephyrian trader, age approximately 45 standard years. Presenting symptoms include neural cascade failure, declining cognitive function, and cellular degradation across multiple organ systems." Thylan's golden eyes remained fixed ahead as they walked. "Standard Caltharian neurological protocols have proven insufficient." Something in his tone made Sarah glance at him sideways. In 3 weeks, she'd never heard Thylan Keth admit any limitation of Caltharian medicine. The man treated their medical protocols like gospel, following each procedure with religious precision. The Quarantine Bay's airlock cycled them through, and Sarah immediately understood why they'd called her. The patient, a humanoid with the characteristic silver-streaked hair and elongated limbs of the Zephyrian species, lay unconscious on the biobed, but every reading on his monitors screamed wrong. Neural activity spiked and crashed in patterns she'd never seen, while his cellular regeneration rates fluctuated wildly. "How long's he been like this?" Sarah moved to the bedside, her trained eyes taking in the patient's condition. 18 hours. We've administered standard neural stabilizers, cellular repair enhancers, and cognitive support matrices." Thylan pulled up the treatment log on the wall display. "Each intervention has resulted in temporary improvement, followed by accelerated decline." Sarah studied the readings, her mind racing. During her residency at Denver General, she'd seen cases where standard protocols weren't enough, where you had to think outside the established parameters. But this was different. The decline pattern looked almost like an immune response, as if the treatments themselves were triggering something. "What about cross-species neural compatibility factors?" she asked. Thylan's expression sharpened. "Cross-species factors are accounted for in standard protocols. Caltharian medicine has successfully treated Zephyrian patients for over 3 centuries. I'm not questioning your medicine." Sarah moved closer to the biobed, watching the neural activity monitors. "But look at this pattern. The crashes are happening exactly 47 minutes after each treatment. That's not random, that's systematic." She pulled up the patient's chart on her personal tablet and began cross-referencing the symptoms with her human medical database. Back on Earth, she'd specialized in emergency medicine with a focus on unusual presentations, the cases that didn't fit textbook patterns. "The neural cascade," she murmured, tracing the wave patterns with her finger. "It's not random degradation, it's defensive." "Defensive?" Thylan moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell the faint ozone scent that seemed to cling to all Caltharians. "Neural tissue does not mount defensive responses to medical treatment. Human neural tissue doesn't." Sarah pulled up comparative neurological charts, but Zephyrian neural networks have that distributed processing capability, right? Multiple consciousness threads running parallel. Correct, it allows them superior multitasking and spatial reasoning. What if the condition isn't attacking his brain? What if it's something his brain is fighting? And our treatments are disrupting his natural defenses. Thylan stared at the monitors for a long moment. Sarah could practically see him running through decades of medical training, testing her theory against everything he knew. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note she'd never heard before: uncertainty. "The protocols do not account for neural self-defense mechanisms as a primary factor, because Caltharian brains don't work that way." Sarah was already moving, pulling up her emergency medicine protocols on the tablet. "But mine do, sort of. Human intuition, pattern recognition, unconscious processing. We've got our own version of distributed thinking." She began typing rapidly, accessing the ship's medical database and cross-referencing Zephyrian neurological data with human emergency medicine approaches. The solution was forming in her mind, not through logical deduction, but through the same intuitive leap that had helped her save lives in Earth's emergency rooms. "I need to try something," she said. "Instead of suppressing the neural cascade, what if we support it?" Thylan's golden eyes widened. "Support a destructive neural event, Dr. Voss, that contradicts every principle of Caltharian medicine, yeah." Sarah was already preparing a modified neural stimulator. But not human medicine. Sometimes the body knows what it's doing, even when it looks like it's killing itself. Fever breaks infections, vomiting expels toxins. What if this cascade is his brain's way of purging something? She looked up at him, seeing the conflict written across his features. 3 weeks of working together had taught her to read his expressions, the subtle shifts in posture that revealed his thoughts. "Trust me," she said quietly. "I know how this looks. I know it goes against everything you've learned. But I've seen this kind of pattern before, not exactly this, but the defensive response disguised as pathology." Thailand studied her for a long moment, then to her surprise he moved to the secondary control station. "Proceed," he said. "I will monitor for any signs of neural damage." Sarah's hands moved with practiced efficiency, adjusting the neural stimulator to work with the cascade pattern instead of against it. It felt like conducting a symphony she'd never heard before, following instincts honed through thousands of hours in emergency rooms where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. "Neural activity is increasing," Thailand reported, his voice tense. "Cascade amplitude up 40%. I know, it should peak in about 3 minutes then start declining." "Should. Dr. Voss, if you're wrong, then we'll have learned something important about how not to treat this condition." Sarah's voice remained steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "But I'm not wrong." The minutes stretched like hours. Neural activity spiked higher, the biobed's alarms chirping warnings that Thailand quickly silenced. Sarah watched the patterns, her intuition mapping the chaos into something that almost made sense. Then, at exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds, the cascade began to stabilize. "Neural activity is normalizing," Thailand said, wonder creeping into his voice. "Cellular regeneration rates are stabilizing. Cognitive function indicators are improving." The patient's eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on Sarah's face. What happened?" "You're safe," Sarah said, her relief evident. "You're aboard the Ascendant Mercy." "How are you feeling?" The Zephyrian tried to sit up, then thought better of it. "Like I've been hit by a cargo hauler, but clearer than I've felt in weeks." Sarah looked across the biobed at Thailand, who was staring at the normalized readings with an expression she couldn't quite read. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. "I didn't not know exactly." Sarah began shutting down the neural stimulator. It was more like recognizing a pattern. Human medicine teaches us to listen to our instincts, to trust pattern recognition even when we can't explain it logically. Caltharian medicine prizes systematic approaches, reproducible protocols. Thailand moved closer, his golden eyes intense. "What you did, it cannot be reduced to a standard procedure." "No, it can't, and that's not a bug, it's a feature." Sarah smiled, feeling the familiar satisfaction of a successful emergency intervention. Sometimes healing isn't about following the rules. Sometimes it's about understanding that the body's already trying to heal itself and getting out of its way. Thailand was quiet for a long moment, studying both the patient and the treatment logs. When he finally spoke, his voice held a note Sarah had never heard before: respect. "In 18 hours of standard treatment, we achieved no lasting improvement. In 18 minutes, using an approach that contradicts our fundamental protocols, you restored normal function." He looked at her directly. "I find myself questioning assumptions I have held for decades." The quarantine bay's doors chimed, and another medical technician entered with urgent news. 3 more patients had arrived with identical symptoms. Sarah and Thailand exchanged glances. "Think your medical board would be interested in an accelerated cross-training program?" Sarah asked, already reaching for her medical kit. For the first time since she'd met him, Thailand Keth smiled, not the polite expression he used in professional settings, but something genuine and warm. "Dr. Voss," he said, "I believe they would find your methods illuminating." As they prepared to treat the new patients, Sarah felt something shift between them. The professional respect had been building for weeks, but this was different. This was the recognition of a true partnership, 2 different approaches to healing that, when combined, could achieve something neither could accomplish alone. "Sarah," she said quietly as they reviewed the incoming cases. "Excuse me. My first name, we're about to revolutionize your medical protocols. Seems like we should be on a first-name basis." Thailand's smile widened. "Thailand and Sarah. Thank you." "For what?" "For showing me that medicine is not just about what we know. It's about being willing to learn what we don't." The next 3 patients responded to the modified treatment protocol with the same dramatic improvement. By the end of her shift, Sarah found herself in the unprecedented position of being asked to present her approach to the ship's entire medical staff. Standing in the Ascendant Mercy's main medical amphitheater, looking out at dozens of pale blue faces, Sarah felt the weight of the moment. She wasn't just sharing a treatment protocol, she was bridging two entirely different philosophies of healing. The key, she explained, is understanding that different species have evolved different healing mechanisms. Humans developed intuitive pattern recognition because our survival often depended on making correct decisions with incomplete information. Caltharians developed systematic protocols because your neural architecture allows for perfect recall and logical processing. She gestured to the treatment data displayed behind her. Both approaches have saved countless lives. But some conditions require both, the systematic foundation of Caltharian medicine combined with the adaptive flexibility of human emergency protocols. In the front row, Thailand watched her with an expression of pride that made her heart skip. When the presentation ended and the questions began, he was the first to stand. Dr. Voss has demonstrated something crucial, he said to his colleagues. Medical excellence is not about perfecting a single approach, it's about recognizing when our approach needs to evolve. Later, as the medical bay settled into its night shift routine, Sarah and Thailand found themselves alone in his office, reviewing the day's cases and planning the integration of her protocols into the ship's medical database. Question, Sarah said, looking up from her notes. What happens when my exchange program ends, when I go back to Earth? Thailand set down his tablet and looked at her directly. I have been authorized to extend an offer for a permanent position aboard the Ascendant Mercy, Chief of Emergency Innovation, a newly created role. And if I said yes, then I would find myself working very closely with someone whose approach to medicine has already changed how I think about healing. His voice dropped slightly. Someone whose insights I have come to value greatly, both professionally and personally. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Thailand. I know this complicates matters. Professional relationships, different species, the medical hierarchy. He stood and moved closer to her chair. But what you accomplished today, what we accomplished together, suggests that some barriers are worth crossing. Sarah stood as well, close enough now to see the flecks of silver in his golden eyes. You know what I realized today. Healing isn't just about understanding systems, it's about understanding people, and understanding each other. When Thailand kissed her, it felt like another medical breakthrough, two different approaches finding a way to work in perfect harmony. 3 months later, Dr. Sarah Voss's revolutionary emergency protocols had been implemented across the entire Caltharian medical fleet. The mysterious neural cascade condition, now identified as a cross-species pathogen that triggered defensive responses in distributed neural networks, had been completely contained using her adaptive treatment methods. But for Sarah, the real breakthrough had nothing to do with medicine. It was discovering that some of the best healing happened not in spite of differences, but because of them, whether between treatment protocols, species, or two hearts learning to beat in sync across the vast reaches of space. Standing in their shared medical bay, watching Thailand efficiently treat a patient using a protocol that seamlessly blended Caltharian precision with human intuition, Sarah smiled. Sometimes the best medicine was simply allowing yourself to trust something new.